I get it in the Catholic Church. I have Mormon friends that got divorced, and that's like unheard of, you know?
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, well, you're taking this stereotype or what normal, you know, whatever it is, and then you're just kind of putting it into this category, and it's like, all right, well, what happened, and you got to be honest with it, and, you know, what you've been able to do is not only move past it in your comedy without using her in it and still being able to do well and work and do all that, but you've transitioned and jumped to a different part of your life, a different chapter of your life with your fiance now.
Which was additional guilt, too, because I felt so bad that this person that I swore unity to, I not only broke that promise, but my life had improved drastically, you know, after the divorce, where I didn't know if hers did or not. And what I was getting at before was she battled certain, you know, issues or,
Sure.
you know, and I felt like while I was married, I would always try to be the positive, you know, pillar, emotional pillar, because, you know, honestly, she was kind of the financial pillar for lots of it.
Okay.
And I felt like after I got divorced, where I didn't have to be the emotional support, that I just didn't have any.
Was it
for myself?
Was it freeing in a way, knowing that you didn't have to, you know, put yourself as that pillow to like vent on?
No, because I was with her for 10 years, and I felt like where I kept trying to push, you know, my own depression or demons or darkness to the side, I felt like immediately afterwards, like 10 years worth of it just hit me.
Ooh.
And where I remember Allison and I went to an amusement park, you know, just as friends. And I, you know, before, and, you know, she was a person that stayed friends with me while I was going through the divorce period.
Which is very important to have. Just whether you're interested in someone or just a guy friend, whatever it is, to have friends when you're going through the hardest time of your life is so important.
Yeah. And my best friend, Bob Phillips, who's a comedian from Detroit, who is Bob the Suit on Twitter, and he's one of the funniest people I know.
He
but
needs to come out here. Do some
he
shows.
does. He really does.
Yeah.
And I keep hoping that he will. But he's 10 years older than I am, and he got divorced too. And he was the guy who I would turn to a lot. And, you know, I don't know that I could have gotten through things with him.
Wow.
But I remember even at a joyous time, like going to an amusement park with Allison, where she's having the time of her life. And I remember just hoping every time we got on a roller coaster that the roller coaster would just fly off the track and I could just die and have it not be by my own hands. So my parents, I was like, this will make it okay for my parents if, you know.
I used to drive at like 2 a.m. coming back from stand-up things or whatever, hoping, and not drunk or anything, you know, just hoping that somebody else was drunk on the other side and was going to come in, and it's like, it's going to make me look like I was just driving normal, and then they came in and it was a head-on collision from the other side, and they do an autopsy and they were drunk and I wasn't. But then I was like, yeah, but it's like, then you get past that and you're like, that was silly. But like, it's a weird, I get that.
But when you're in it, it just doesn't feel silly.
Well, that's a great point, because you're almost numb to the thought of anything normal. I remember when people tell me things like, you know, when you think suicide, it's so selfish. And I'm like, yeah, but like, you can think that, but when you're in a dark place, you're literally thinking, at least I am, that if these people love me like they say they do, and they want what's best for me, and I'm saying that me being off this earth is best for me, then they'll let me do that. Like, that's as dark as my mind gets. And I obviously don't do it. I've talked about it on this show about my suicide attempts. And it's one of those things where it's, as scary as it is, I empathize or sympathize with anyone that has gone through those thoughts and that has, you know, even tried it. I don't look at it as a selfish act because I don't know what went on beforehand. I don't know what the motivation was. There probably are people that committed suicide in a selfish way so their loved ones can see them and it could be about them. Maybe. That's not my life. That's not my business. But from somebody that's gone through it, I think that it's an ignorant thing to say when you just share like, oh yeah, I've thought about killing myself. No, why would you think that? It's like, well, I'm sorry, I don't control my brain and how it thinks sometimes. I think there's a lot of people that have minds that go a different way than they would have ever expected.
And it's so weird that when you're in the middle of it, you can't reason.
No. There's no rationale there.
Yeah, like you can tell yourself the things that everyone else will tell you, where you're like, oh no, this is going to pass. Like I've kept a journal off and on through periods of my life, and I've looked back at them in periods where I just wanted to die and would just marvel at the fact that, I don't deal with breakups very well.
I don't know anybody that does, and if they do, that means they weren't really loved.
Yeah, I remember my first quote unquote girlfriend in high school. The night that I took her to prom, she ended up sleeping with my best friend. Oh no! And I wanted to.
Is that Bob Phillips?
No,
okay.
no.
He's 10 years older.
Yeah, that would have been weird. Like
Bob Phillips.
Yeah, some 26-year-old guy is sleeping with some 15-year-old girl. Yeah, Bob Phillips is not a pedophile. I just need to put that out there right now.
That's right, and I went after Bob. My bad, Bob.
But this was a girl that broke my heart, and I wanted to die. And of course, I was 16. Like that was the world to me.
Did you stay in touch with that friend?
No.
Yeah, good for you.
I keyed his car. And
let me ask you this about these keying car thing, because I've never done it. I always thought it was more of a punishment to yourself to hear that sound. Like, that's nails on a chalkboard times 10. Did you put headphones on?
No, there was a man-made lake in Michigan, and where kids would go skinny dipping.
I love this.
My friend John Caldwell and I, we went there to see if these people, Graham and Amber, were there, and they were. We saw Graham's car, so we knew that they were there. So I was like, oh, there's his car. And then I was driving, and John handed me his car keys. And I just knew what to do. I rolled down my window and just stuck my hand out the window and keyed from the rear quarter panel to the front quarter panel.
See, that doesn't sound as bad as I thought, because you were in a car doing it.
Yeah.
Right? So
I got caught.
From him that while you were doing it?
Because he was parked in front of someone's house, and the guy was outside and got my license plate, and Graham went over and said, I have a witness, you keyed my car. So I had to pay to have it. Yeah.
Did you say, I have a witness, you fucked my girlfriend?
There's no monetary damage to that. But years later, I ran into Amber, and she was a piece of shit. She was a racist, homophobic.
What?
Invited me. She's like, hey, you want to come over to my place, smoke some weed, and fuck around while my husband's away? And I was
she
like,
did not.
And I was like, oh wow, like you're the worst person I've met as an adult. But when I was a kid,
was her husband that guy?
No.
I'm really invested in something that's relevant to that.
That happened in 1988. And I was like, wow, like this awful person had so much control over my life that later in life when I would go through issues, I would try to remember, like, try to see this situation for what it is. And I think,
you know how much joy it brings me, though, to know that if anybody knows Mike Bobbitt, it's the opposite. You could have ended up with somebody that's racist and homophobic when you are the opposite of both of those. Like, you are a lover of every gender and sex and all of that. Like, you've always been open about it in your act. Super kind to everyone. You do Samantha Hill's show at Mickey's in West Hollywood, which is like a gay show. You do all these things to know that you could have ended up. I know you wouldn't have. Mike,
yeah.
But you wouldn't have changed who you are. But it makes me happy to know that, because it's such it's opposite lands.
I feel like in this day of age, if you don't have at least a dozen gay friends and a handful of trans friends,
right,
then you're probably a piece of shit.
100%.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, in comedy, it's one of those things where it's like, you meet people from all walks of life, and you just learn to love them, no matter who, where they came, whatever it is. It's like, I don't look at anybody from where they are, what color they are. And I think comedy's helped me even, because I live in the Simi Valley, where it's where the Rodney King trial was. It's a Ronald Reagan Library, and that's what they're known for. So I didn't really grow up with a lot of black people or gay people, but as I started putting myself out in comedy clubs and all that stuff, I just meet all people from different areas, and you're more exposed to it, and it's amazing.
And I've realized that, and I'm probably deflecting again, and I apologize.
No,
and we'll
dude,
get back to the subject, but on the subject of comedy and the diversity of it, Bob, my best buddy, Bob Phillips, his dad was a self-made millionaire.
Is that right?
Owns a company where they were sort of like an umbrella company for a bunch of different tech companies.
Okay.
And, Bob has a very, he's doing fine. For his day job, he's doing great. Right. And his dad asked him one time, like, you have, 3 wonderful kids. You have a beautiful house. You have a great job, a super car. Like, why comedy? And Bob told his dad, he's like, because with comedy, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, old or young, gay or straight, black or white. All that matters with comedy is if you're funny.
Funny's funny.
And he's like, I like that it's a level playing field. And I don't know that his dad ever understood that. And
maybe down the line, I think maybe he thought. That's a quote that I think that his dad probably thought of.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because Bob has, like I said, his Twitter is Bob the Suit, and he wears a suit on stage because
every show.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, I love that.
Because he's a guy who believes he's a marketing guy. He does marketing for the family company, and he believes that he is the package that he's putting out there, and it works with who he is. And
I love that he wears a suit. Robert Schimmel, I believe, used to be.
Oh, Robert Schimmel is one of Bob's favorites.
Love that. You ever hear that story of Artie Lange's where he opened for Bob Schimmel? This is good. Bob Schimmel goes up, kills, doing a great job, but it's at this big theater, and there's like cops next to Artie, that are just watching. And I forget. I think they went overseas to do for the troops. So they saw that there was a big spider crawling up Bob, because in his suitcase, wherever they went, a spider that's a poisonous spider was on him.
Oh.
And the crowd saw it, and he reacted like I don't even know what he did, and he freaked out and got the spider off. But if they bit him, you only have 10 minutes, is what the cops told Artie. But they were like, they had seen this all the time. So Artie goes, I would have got off stage and never come back, where Bob Schimmel got rid of the spider and went right back to his act because he was a professional. And he goes, I bet he didn't even remember that happened, but Artie remembers, that.
I bet Bob Schimmel did at least 5 minutes on the spider, though.
Oh, no, I don't know, but it's hilarious.
But with Bob Phillips, because of the way he dresses and the fact that, it's technology companies and, defense companies too, and they've done some great stuff, protecting, the homeland and everything, that Bob has a reputation of being this super, right-wing guy. Yeah. And, and sometimes people very unfairly stereotype him. But, when you look at stuff like he was the guy who was there for me during, my separation and divorce, and the fact that I think he was very eloquent in the way that he described comedy to his dad, that I think Bob is probably more compassionate than a lot of my liberal friends.
Well, that's a great point, because I think in general people look at Republican or Democrat and then they judge them automatically instead of getting to know them as a person. just because you might not agree with someone politically, that person was there for you